Probably not. But wanted to pick up on what Dr. Jenkins started as far as the discussion, particularly about 1995. We'll talk 1970. The lawsuit was filed against not just Seminole County. It was 6 different districts that were involved in that particular lawsuit. And that the result of the filing of that lawsuit was an order from the court to move towards a unitary system. As we all know, that didn't happen very quickly. The real work, I believe, occurred after 1995 when Winter Springs High School, the school board submitted the plan for the attendance zone to the Department of Justice. Because while we were under federal jurisdiction, essentially, because of the court order, we had to submit for permission for different things. And the attendance zones is one of them. And when we submitted in 1995, the plan was rejected. And that was the start of the school board saying to the superintendent to make all steps to move towards the declaration of a unitary system. So from 1970 to 1995, there was work done, but I think the real work really started in 1995. And from there were a number of consent decrees. That's essentially negotiations with the Department of Justice, where we negotiated a number of different things so that we could ultimately, one day, hopefully, get to be determined a unitary system. And no, you all will be surprised because so many folks are when I tell you that did not happen until 2006. I worked with the school system on the day that we got an order from the Middle District Court that Seminole County had been determined to be unitary. And that declaration happened based on hundreds, thousands of hours of work by a number of educators like Dr. Cody, Dr. Wright, Dr. Jenkins, Dr. Haggard, Dr. Vogel, to demonstrate to the Department of Justice that the school board had not only eliminated the vestiges of the dual system, but had demonstrated a commitment that it would have a unitary system even after the court was no longer looking at every step. And so it's that commitment along with the demonstration that ultimately led to the school board being determined to be a unitary system. Now, Dr. Cody came up to the district office in or about 1991. Okay. And was part of that work. So I'll let her share a few stories from that time, and hopefully we'll get this video going and we'll be able to talk a little bit more.
Thank you, Ms. Beamon, and thank you everyone for giving us this opportunity, because this is a story that I hope will continue to be told. As many of you know, Seminole County Public Schools is a nationally recognized premier school district. And when we look at how that occurred, the foundation of that work is really based on this whole journey to unitary status. As you heard Dr. Jenkins share, we did have a dual school system. And when you think about that, it just doesn't even sit right in your stomach, how children were treated and how materials were given to African American schools that were not good enough for students who went to white schools. So all of that, all of those situations existed. And simultaneously, there were unbelievable community leaders, African American community leaders, white community leaders, Hispanic, who said, no, this is not going to be our story. Seminole County is not going to be known for that. And so as Ms. Beamon said, in 1999, the the Department of Justice got very, very serious with us and with other districts throughout the country, actually. And so one of the most aggressive efforts was an informal discovery request from the United States Department of Justice. And what that was a series of 59 questions, and we'll talk about this on our video, hopefully, if you'll see it, that looked very, very deeply into the practices in Seminole County Public Schools. Each question had multiple facets. And when we finished answering those questions, we had 9 banker boxes, you know those boxes, that went to the United States Department of Justice. And we were truthful. We saw some pretty ugly things happening. In 1999, and Mrs. Wright, Dr. Wright now, was my principal. She hired me, so that's why when she calls, the answer's always yes, right, Dr. Wright? So we shared with them what was truly happening, and we started to develop a wonderful relationship. And really, I know Ms. Bohar was sharing the Hamilton story, but we saw pictures of, for example, Mr. Blackshear and Hortense Evans and other leaders who would not stop fighting. Commissioner Williams, Mr. Nathan, who was also one of my principals, who just said, we're going to get this right. And so over those several years, through 2006, much work was done, but I have to tell you, that work is why so many of our kids take advanced placement courses. We're one of the top performing districts in the country. Why? Because we said all kids can take it. And if you want to try, you can try, and we'll give you support to be successful. You do your part, you have to do your work, and we'll do our part. International Baccalaureate, again, we don't have criteria to get in. You want to give it a go? We put you through a lottery and get as many kids in as we can. And we're one of the highest performing districts in North America. All of that is really because the consent decrees opened up eyes of how we really should support our students. So as Ms. Beamon said, we were awarded unitary status in 2003 in the areas of faculty assignment and of transportation. So faculty assignment meant the school district should look like the community. Children want to see representatives of themselves as their teachers. So they see themselves as learned people, as educators. And we weren't there, so we had to make an effort to make sure we recruit and retain our minority educators. And we do that still to this day. When we do our allocations, we look to be sure. Transportation, and Mr. Blackshear's, I'll use his words. He called our plan for student assignment a masterpiece. Why? Because we didn't force bus anybody. You all remember all the forced busing that went all over the country? We don't do that. We allow parents to make a choice. And then our board, Ms. Sanchez is here from our board says we'll get you there. Because without transportation, there is no equity and there is no choice. Only the kids who have means to get to the program can participate. So that was our first step to attaining unitary. And then I think Ms. Beamon, what really started us down that path was when our school board said, we're not unitary yet, but we're going to make policies that assure our community when we are unitary, we're not going to go backwards. We're not going to step back. And I can tell you, and I know Dr. Jenkins, you read about this too, many districts have gone backwards. And they have segregated schools again. And Seminole County that's not going to happen because we have policies that assure that. So when it came time for unitary status, something very, very special happened, and I'll ask Ms. Beamon to share that part.